welcome to another episode of the Road Coach Podcast, the show where I share what I've learned from years from living on the road, away from home through research and experimentation, so that you can not only survive when you're but thrive when you're out of your element. And first up, I will apologize on today's video for sounding like I'm chewing on a bag of marbles and for being a little bit puffy in the face, but I got major jaw surgery just a week ago. Still am very much recovering from that. But of course, I didn't want to miss an episode. So you get to deal with a little bit of swelling and hopefully um, a decent enunciation of what I'm trying to say. So, for those that are tuning in for the first time, please subscribe on YouTube, youtube.com/@the road coach podcast. Or you can follow me on Instagram at RJCrate. You can listen to the Road Coach podcast on any of your favorite podcasting apps. If you like what you hear and see here, please share it with friends. Twice a week, every Tuesday and Friday, I take you through a topic of something that I've learned from living on the road. I spend a lot of time away from home, 50% or more for my job. And with that comes a lot of difficulty in keeping yourself optimized, keeping yourself motivated, keeping your mood high, keeping on track with your goals, whatever they may be, personal, fitness, spiritual, family, doesn't matter. And so I've had to optimize a lot of things, and I've had to learn a lot of things over the years of doing this. And because of that, I spent a lot of time researching, and I feel like a lot of people would like to know this stuff, so that's why I share it with you. Today's episode is going to be my first ever supplement episode. And my supplement for today is going to be creatine. Creatine, I think, is one of the most important supplements that people can take, regardless of whether or not you are into fitness or into heavy lifting or anything like that. Creatine is important for so many things on a base level, and most of us don't get enough of it. And I think that there's a lot of misconception out there in the marketplace and on the internet, let's say, of people who don't really know what they're talking about and aren't using research to back up their claims. So I'd like to sort of explain the science behind creatine today, why I take it, why I think it's beneficial, and why I think everyone should be taking some creatine. So this, like any of the episodes that I've done so far, is not sponsored by anybody, not any particular brand of creatine or creatine cabal in any way. This is just my own personal experience and the research that I've done. So you can see on my screen, if you're watching on YouTube, I've pulled up a Cleveland Clinic article on just creatine in general. Start very basic, just in case you don't know what creatine is. So creatine is an amino acid. Amino acids are the building blocks of proteins. They help build muscle, bones, repair tissues, among other things. For example, with my jaw surgery that I'm recovering from right now, I've had to basically double my protein intake on a daily basis to help speed up the healing process so that I'm not out of remission for weeks and weeks and weeks. And what creatine does is it's a natural source of energy that bonds with phosphate, essentially to help your muscles flex. That's why a lot of bodybuilders and weightlifters take extra creatine to help their muscles flex more. All right. Now it says here that about half your body's supply of creatine, 1 to 2 grams a day, comes from your diet, especially protein foods such as this, and then your body produces the other half naturally in your livers, kidneys, pancreas. So your body does produce its own creatine. It cannot produce enough of the creatine to saturate your muscular system with it, especially as you grow more muscle, you need more creatine to saturate it. But that's basically what it is. You get some from inside you get some from diet, neither of which add up to enough to maximize creatine stores in your body. Okay? Hence the supplement. So now we're going to talk about ATP a little bit and how creatine works. So ATP, if you don't know, stands for adenosine triphosphate. Then adenosine triphosphate is the energy molecule that is made inside the mitochondria of every one of your cells in your body. Okay? It's the same molecule that makes fireflies light up. See, it's a firefly light up. They're injecting electricity into ATP molecule, breaking phosphate, and just get that light. So that's literally the energy that you're producing inside your body. It does the exact same thing. It splits off a phosphate molecule from the adenosine triphosphate to make it adenosine diphosphate. Now there's only left, and that split of the phosphate molecule creates energy for you. So what creatine does is it's able to conjugate with phosphate, okay, and then form what's called PCR, and then PCR functions as a carrier of phosphate used for rapid ATP generation. Essentially, you have ATP in your system. You burn off a phosphate, and that energy molecule is essentially dead now. It can't be used again unless creatine comes along, picks up that loose phosphate, and then it can make more ATP for you. So essentially, what you're doing with creatine is you're taking that ATP molecule that would be used once and enabling yourself to use it twice. It's doubling the energy essentially of every ATP molecule for free. Okay? That's why creatine is so important. Now, when we talked about it being produced in your body, you can see here, this is just, I didn't bother looking this up in a study. It just gives you answers sometimes now that are fairly accurate. So creatine is produced in your body by your kidneys, your liver, and your pancreas. And on average, you make 1 to 2 grams of creatine per day. Okay? Now, how much creatine do you actually need to saturate your muscles so that you are maximizing the amount of ATP that you can recycle and therefore get more energy? On bodybuilding.com, there's a creatine calculator. Now, caveat, I don't know how they calculate this, and I'm not going to get into how they do it. I'm just going to assume that it's relatively accurate and based on research. And I'm sorry to not go into all the science on this particular piece of the podcast, but it would take way too much time. Look into this yourself, bodybuilding.com/fun/creatine_calculator.htm. But essentially, you put in your weight, and it'll calculate how much creatine you need to bring in to saturate your muscles. So I threw in 160 pounds, my current weight, and it says I need 5 grams of creatine. If you throw in 250 pounds, it says that you need to take about 8 grams of creatine to saturate your muscles. And that is, I believe, based on research that was done. There is a study out there, I just don't have it up. There's a study out there that says that you need about I think it's 0.1 grams per kilogram in your muscles is what you can accept for creatine. Something like that is what they figured out. So you figure 160 pounds, about 70 kilos, 73 kilos, something like that. It would read more like 7 if that were the case. So anyways, check this out and see if it's based on what you want. But 5 grams for me is about right based on my experimentation for my weight. Because if I take more, it doesn't for me. And if I take less, I notice a significant lessening in performance in the gym. So 5 grams is pretty much good for me. If I assume that my body's going to produce 1 or 2, then I've got to get in 3 or 4 grams of creatine for my diet each day to maximize the creatine in my muscles, and then of course maximize my performance regardless of what I'm doing. It doesn't have to be weightlifting. It's just energy expenditure period. Okay? Now, I'm going to ingest the rest from my diet rather than supplement. Here are your top sources of creatine in diet. Okay, herring, fillet, raw, and dried has 1.1 grams of creatine, 100 grams of dried herring. I don't know anyone who eats dried herring fillet, but probably bodybuilders do. If you have just raw beef, like beef carpaccio, then 100 grams of that has 0.9 grams of creatine. And it goes down and drops off pretty steeply fairly quickly. So a lot of people that are trying to eat well, they eat a lot of chicken breast. Eat chicken breast that has 0.4 grams of creatine per 100 grams. 100 grams is just over 4 ounces. Or sorry, just under 4 ounces. 4 ounces. There's 28 ounces in them. There's 28 grams in an ounce. So 4 ounces is about the size of the palm of your hand, or figure around 4 by 4 by about 3/4 of an inch thick piece of meat. Is going to be about that size. So if I need to consume, now let's take salmon, because salmon's up there with herring, and I eat a lot of salmon. 0.9 grams of creatine. If I want to eat enough salmon in a day to maximize my creatine outside of what my body produces on its own, that means I would need to eat somewhere between 12 and 15 ounces of salmon. So that's somewhere in the range of 4 inches long, or 4 inches, yeah, 4 inches wide by a foot long by 3/4 inch thick, or 4 inches by 15 inches by a 1/4 inch thick of salmon to maximize my creatine stores in my body, if that's the only other source of creatine throughout the day. If it was chicken, it would be double that. So 2 feet of chicken breast, or 2.5 feet of chicken breast, depending on how much my individual body produces. But on that from there, like, let's see here, bacon is 0.1 gram. So you're talking like pounds of bacon on a daily basis if you can maximize creatine. It's almost impossible to maximize your creatine stores from diet alone. And that's why so many people recommend supplementation, and which is why I supplement with it, and why I think everybody should, unless they have an underlying condition that prevents them. Talk to your doctor if you're concerned. Improperly working kidneys is a good reason not to supplement creatine. There are a couple others, but for the majority of healthy, regular people, regardless of age, I would recommend you supplement. Okay, so this is on Quora. This is just a guy who's researched creatine for 11 years, and I just wanted to bring this up because the type of creatine that people think, there's a lot of misinformation out there about what type. Can I just take a creatine monohydrate powder? Do I have to take like a pH balanced pill that doesn't get absorbed, or it doesn't get wasted by my stomach acid, etc.? So there's a lot of different types of creatine out there, and essentially the reason I brought this up quickly so you can see it is that creatine is not destroyed by acid, and it is not, or not destroyed by acid quickly anyways, and it is not destroyed by boiling it either. So if you want a powder form of creatine, like a creatine monohydrate, the cheapest form to get creatine nowadays, it works just fine. It will last in your digestive system before breaking down for about 12 hours. Want to put it in tea to help it dissolve, or something hot to help it dissolve, but not break it down in that way. Stomach acid. Okay? But don't feel like you have to get this super expensive pH balanced special coating pill of creatine that costs triple the money, because none of that makes any scientific sense. It's just a marketing ploy to get your money. Okay, so get the cheap powdered creatine monohydrate, and that will do the trick just fine for you, the same way any other creatine supplement will. All right, moving on from there. Getting into the science a little bit. So the effects of creatine supplementation. This is a meta-analysis. For those of you who don't know, a meta-analysis is an analysis of a bunch of studies on a certain topic grouped together to see what the common trends were between the studies. When they do a good meta-analysis, they find studies that are relevant and that actually measure the same things. And if they're not measuring the same things, or the methods were not done properly, they'll exclude them from the meta-analysis. All right. So in this one specifically, they were looking at the effects of creatine on memory in healthy individuals. So this is something that is a little bit of a sidebar. When we're talking about creatine, everyone thinks muscular performance and weightlifting at the gym, but memory is a massive benefit to creatine that most people don't think about. So this one used 23 eligible RCTs, or randomized clinical trials. 10 of them examined the effect of creatine supplementation with a placebo, compared with a placebo, on measures of memory, healthy individuals. Okay? They included 8 of those in the meta-analysis. So overall, what happened was creatine supplementation improved measures of memory compared with the placebo, with a standard mean difference of 0.29 and a p-value of 0.02. Anytime you're looking at studies, a p-value of 0.05 or less is considered statistically significant, so you can trust this data. A standard mean difference of 0.29 means the measures that they were comparing, the absolute difference between a placebo effect and effect on memory of creatine was 0.29. That doesn't tell us much about like how much better your memory is, but in general, when you're looking at standard mean differences, anything around 2 is considered a small improvement. Anything around 0.5, sorry, I think I said 2, but 0.2. Anything around 0.5 is considered a medium effect or a moderate improvement. And anything around 0.8 or better is considered a significant improvement. So with everybody uncategorized by age or any other factors, everybody in these 8 studies, 0.29 was the standard mean difference, meaning there was a small but very measurable improvement in memory for anybody who took creatine as a supplement. Okay? If you look at the older adults from 66 to 76 years, SMD was 0.88, or about as large as you get. Meaning older adults over the age of 66 in this particular meta-analysis have a significant improvement in memory function if they take creatine. So again, outside of weightlifting. And what they said here is that the dose they took, anywhere from 2.2 grams to 20 grams a day, the duration of how long they took it, 5 days, 24 weeks. Their sex, their geographical orientation, or the geographical origin did not influence the finding. That's incredible. So whether you take a little bit of extra creatine, a lot of extra creatine, regardless of whether you're a man or a woman, or whether you've only been taking it for 5 days or taken it your entire life, your memory will improve based on taking it. So that's pretty powerful, especially the older you get, the effect. Okay, so now this is this is another meta-analysis, I think. Oh no, this is an update of creatine supplementation with on exercise and sport. So this I just wanted to show. Regardless, so this is again a meta-analysis. I don't have the full, or not going to read the full study. Sorry, but this here in this meta-analysis says, regardless of the form, supplementation with creatine is regularly shown to increase strength, fat-free mass, and muscle morphology with heavy resistance training at the same time versus heavy resistance training without creatine. It may benefit endurance training, but all the benefits of creatine diminish as time goes on, as if you work out longer, which makes sense because creatine is reusing your ATP, and eventually it's going to be gone altogether. But in those initial stages, it's going to give you better results. Also, this is what I was speaking about before. More recent research suggests that creatine supplementations in the amount of 0.1 grams per kilogram of body weight combined with resistance training improves training adaptations at a cellular and subcellular level. So if you aim for 0.1 grams per kilogram of body weight as the total amount you're getting in a day, can't go wrong there. So for most people, at worst, even if you're 250 pounds, you might need 5-6 grams of creatine a day. Okay? Which is not going to cost you much. All right. And some conclusions here that I think are really important. This is, again, a review on multiple studies. This is what creatine supplementation has positive effects on. Amplifying the effects of resistance training, enhanced strength and hypertrophy. Improving the quality and benefits of high-intensity intermittent speed training. Improving aerobic endurance and performance lasting in trials lasting more than 150 seconds. It seems to produce positive effects on strength, power, fat-free mass, daily living performance, and neurological function in young and older people. Shows an upregulation of gene expression when creatine is administered together with resistance training exercises. And the increased body's creatine stores seem to amplify favorable physiological adaptations such as increased plasma volume, glycogen storage, which is what helps your muscles move when you don't have any. Improvements of ventilatory threshold, possible reduction in oxygen consumption in submaximal exercise, meaning you require less oxygen to do the same amount. Pretty impressive. One more meta study that I want to show you here. Of the 22 studies reviewed in this one, the average increase in muscle strength was 8% greater than the average increase in muscle strength following placebo. So 20% increase in muscle strength with creatine versus 12 without, or 12 with a placebo. The average increase in weightlifting performance following creatine plus resistance was 14% greater than the average increase following the placebo. The increase in bench press 1 rep max ranged from 3 to 45%. And the improvement in weightlifting performance in the bench press, ranged from 16 to 43%. There is substantial evidence to indicate that creatine supplementation during resistance training is more effective at increasing muscle strength and weightlifting performance than resistance training alone. Although the response is highly variable. So some people get more benefit than others, but it's undoubtedly true. Get better results if you. Now, I told you before, you get any creatine powder, monohydrate that you want, whatever's cheapest, as long as the creatine monohydrate, that's going to be your best bet. However, I travel a lot, and this is the Road Coach podcast, so I invest in something a little bit more expensive. It's called the EFX, Realkaline EFX. These are capsules. It's called the purple cap, the original purple cap. So if you've seen this bottle anywhere, this is what I particularly use. This is pH balanced to 12, and this is one of those marketing things that I said they will tell you is better for you, and you absorb more creatine, and you can take less of it because you don't lose any of it in your stomach. You now know that not to be true, so you do not need to invest in something more expensive, pH balanced, to get the exact same benefit of creatine. But the reason that I use these is because they're in pill form, and it's 0.75 grams per pill. So I take 4 of these a day to get 3 grams of creatine, top of the 2 that my body produces, maybe another 1 that I'm eating with the meat that I eat throughout the day. But these are really nice because they're easy to pack in a toiletry bag and get, get on a plane and in your suitcase and stuff. Sometimes if you're scooping scoops and scoops of powder because you're gone for 7 days, or you want to take a whole jar of powder, it's impossible to get in a suitcase. So this is the one particular one I buy. It works great. I love it. It is a little on the pricier side, and you can just go with a basic powder. But if you're like me and you live on the road, it might be easier to get some to help you travel a little bit easier. That's it on today's episode. If you liked what you heard, please subscribe, share it with your friends. Again, you can listen on any of your favorite podcasting episodes or find us on youtube.com/@the-road-coach-podcast. Follow me on Instagram at RJCrate. And until next time, I hope you are thriving, even by the Cheers.